Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DCEU Daily. So there's been a few leaks from the Batman's novelization. Some very interesting leaks. Now, what we heard yesterday is not news to me, considering I have seen the Batman movie. Most of my regular viewers and followers on Twitter at Movies TV Mad will also know this as well. But one of the leaks, or a couple of the leaks, are saying, and this is information obviously from seeing the film that I already know, but I'm going to pass on what's been said. So a couple of the leaks are that Metropolis and Lexcorp exist in Matt Reeves' The Batman universe. Corp and Metropolis exist in this universe that Matt Reeves is developing and creating. So instead of me talking about what I've seen in the movie, because I don't want to spoil that movie for you, by the way, we can talk about these leaks. So what I can say to you is, look, there's no point me hiding this or saying this is not true. This is absolutely true. In the Batman movie, Lexcorp exists, and so does Metropolis. And this is, but I told you people this ages ago, and I keep on saying it and saying it and saying it, that Matt Reeves isn't just building a self-contained Batman universe, movie universe. He's building a DC universe. He is moulding the clay of DC's Earth 2. That's huge. It tells you the trust that Walter Hamada, DC and WB have got in this man to allow him to mould his own clay in his own Earth, in his own DC universe. And so that's very, very exciting. And I'm kind of happy that this has been leaked out, because we could discuss this. What this tells us, that there is a Lexcorp in the Batman universe, and that there is a Metropolis in Matt Reeves' The Batman universe. It tells you that Matt Reeves is moulding the clay of an entire Earth rather than one character. But at this moment in time, he's focused on Batman and on his rogue gallery and on Gotham City. That's his focus. Now, more than likely, because it's going to take forever for Matt Reeves to get through what he's doing with Batman, more than likely he's going to bring other creatives he trusts in to deal with these other DC characters in his Earth too, which makes makes entire sense, doesn't it? So, for example, and I'm not saying this is a thing, but J.J. Abrams is a close work colleague and a very close friend of Matt Reeves. It could be that the Superman movie he's producing and going to be written by Ta-Nehisi Coates could actually be in this Earth too. Ultimately, where else would it be? Now, interestingly enough, this Superman movie is supposed to be set in the 90s. Now, interestingly enough, originally the Batman was supposed to be set in the 90s. Again, I don't want to get into spoiler territory here. We're just talking now. So that's an interesting vibe that we could have within this movie. So that's interesting as well. So yes, Metropolis and Lexcorp both exist in the Batman universe, and that's very, very exciting. I think for DC fans in general, because people do want to see Easter eggs. People do want to know that there's an expansive universe. It is fun to know that Superman's world exists somewhere on Matt Reeves' Earth too. And again, I don't want to talk about whether or not Superman exists in that world, but there certainly is a Metropolis, there certainly is a Lexcorp, so you only really have to add 2 and 2, and then you have to work out, has Superman arrived? Is he Superman yet? And things like that. These are things that I really don't want to talk about, but these are also very, very exciting things as well, that me as a DC fan is very, very excited about. Now, as the days and weeks go on, we're going to learn more and more about the Batman's novelization. This will give the game away a lot, and it's up to you whether you want to listen to those leaks, listen to me talk about those leaks or not. I certainly will discuss the Batman's novelization, and I will buy it as well. I mean, maybe we could do a live video where we just, when the film's been and gone, of course, and read it out and have some fun and, you know, analyse it, because obviously we can't watch the film together on YouTube and copyright doesn't allow us to do that. So that could be a fun way of experiencing Matt Reeves' The Batman together, but we'll discuss that further down the line. But I think this kind of, you know, this leak enables me to talk about this. It enables me to say, do you know what? Yes, there is a Metropolis, there is a Lexcorp in the Batman movie. You know, it's out there now. Once someone starts leaking it on the internet, nearly everybody knows. So it's not a huge spoiler. It doesn't spoil the plot. It doesn't spoil what's going on within the Batman movie. But for me, these are very, very exciting developments. So Eric Weber, who works and writes for EW, received a text from a friend about the Batman, and this is what he said. Now, having seen the movie myself, it's very interesting to hear people say a friend text me about the film. So this is what's been said. Received a text from a source who's seen the Batman, calling it a complex film, comparing it to Zodiac, Chinatown, The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects is an interesting one because of the shocking twist nature of the Batman, and that's something it has in common with Bryan Singer's The Usual Suspects. This is the movie that made Kevin Spacey and Bryan Singer superstars in Hollywood. Yeah, we can blame this film, right? But, you know, Singer, a very talented storyteller, and whatever we think of Kevin Spacey, a very talented actor. Silence of the Lambs, that's another interesting comparison. I agree with all these comparisons. Source also stating it will be controversial and people will discuss it endlessly. Yes, I want to discuss it with you now, but I can't. It would be irresponsible of me throwing away constant clues at you and saying this and that. I could literally have 1 million subs right now using, you know, this Lenovo tablet with very little, you know, picture quality. I could literally do really well for myself if I told you the whole movie. I'm not going to do that. It's not fair because I'm a fan and I know how that would feel like. I made the conscious decision of going to see the film, of applying for an early screening. You didn't. So you have the right to see it, you know, and, you know, because it's such a huge movie with so many shocks, surprises and twists. You want to experience it on IMAX with a bunch of other movie fans. And as soon as this movie's released, I'm going to see this. I may as well pitch a 10. I've seen it. I'm excited about it, and I just want to see this film and experience it again and again and again. But there's one movie they left out of this list, and it's 7, 7, 7, and 7. Watch 7, especially the twist at the end with the head and the box. I'm not saying there's a shocking head in a box in the Batman, but watch that film 7. That is going to prepare you, and you're still not going to be ready for the Batman. Robert Pattinson has spoken about why Bruce Wayne becomes the Batman. He's got this enormous trauma inside him, and he's built this intrinsic psychological mechanism to handle it. It's like a really, really bad self-therapy, which has ended up with him being Batman at the end as self-help. Now, this is something that I read out yesterday, but I want to get into this a little bit deeper because this really is Batman in the comics, isn't it? You know, we've spoken about how accurate a depiction is this to the comics. And as I say, this is not about adapting one comic. And what Reeves has done here, he's taken a selection of his favourite Batman graphic novels and he's kind of adapting them in one movie. Don't forget, this film's just under 3 hours long, so there's a, you know, there's a lot to get through in this movie. But ultimately, the loyal adaptation to the comics isn't necessarily the storytelling, although it's there within the storytelling. It's the adaptation of Batman and Bruce Wayne, very articulately done here. So in terms of the Batman that you've read before, the Bruce Wayne that you've read before, very, very accurate. Now, I think in terms of what Christopher Nolan did, there are intricacies there within the character. You say, yeah, that reminds me of the greatest detective in the comics. But I think he didn't scratch at the surface deep enough. The issue with Nolan really was he wasn't a Batman fan. You know, Matt Reeves is. And his kind of, the research he was doing wasn't any research he was doing. That was David Goyer's remit to research the character. And, you know, they both wrote the story and David wrote the screenplay. I think that's the difference between Christopher Nolan and Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves is a fan who knows his subject matter, and Christopher Nolan didn't know his subject matter so well, but he did give us a great Batman. There's no question about that. This is not about saying one's better than the other, or one, you know, storyteller's better than the other. Although at this moment in time, I am more of a Matt Reeves fan than I am a Christopher Nolan fan. In fact, even though I think Nolan has made many great movies, I think it's kind of the greatness of Nolan now. He's not at his peak anymore in terms of movies, because he's kind of interested in more war movies, more historical movies. I'm not interested in that, in that kind of direction he's going in now. I kind of find it boring. But what Matt Reeves is doing with the Batman and with DC Comics now is very exciting. The Batman movies, the HBO Max spin-offs, you know, the Batman animated series, they're bringing that back with J.J. Abrams and Bruce Timm. So it's a really exciting time to be a Batman fan. And, you know, I think that Matt Reeves may be the first Batman fan to work, you know, on Batman on such a large scale. And, you know, credit to the company for allowing Matt in and to do this and to really trust Matt. And that's made me really happy. And I know it's made a lot of you Batman stans happy as well. So Robert Pattinson is teasing how the Batman ends. Don't worry, no spoilers, but this is what he's had to say. It's a really, really unusual Batman story, and it almost seems harder for me to imagine it being a series afterwards. I mean, they always have that little bit at the end that's like, and coming up. But other than that, it feels strangely personal. I think people will be quite shocked at how different it is. Well, yes, one of my experiences I had watching it is I wasn't so shocked actually that it was different, because I think we kind of were pre-warned how different it was going to be. But I don't think this is a film that's different for different sake. That's what I said in my reaction video to this film. It's actually done because the person making this film, you know, this is what I love about the Batman. It's personal to the person writing and directing it and the person starring as this dual, you know, this character, this actor in this dual role. So it's personal to both of them. You know, it's very rare to have both ends of the camera have really strong fans and stans making it. And I think everyone making this film has love for Batman and DC, and I think that's so exciting. So I think it's a personal story for Matt Reeves, and I think watching it, you can see it, and when you see it, you're going to say, yeah, I can see this is personal to this guy. This is what we want. We haven't had that really in a... You don't get it in Marvel. It's just another, you know, it's just another chapter of the next, you know, episode of Kevin Feige's MCU. It's not even personal to Feige. It's a business. Now, the Snyderverse was personal to Zack Snyder. That's one of the things that kind of sucked me into the Snyderverse. It was personal to the guy. It meant something. And it's same with Matt Reeves, the Batman. Watching this film, you can see how personal it is. The ending is shocking. It really is. And it's going to be keeping people talking for a very, very long time. Before we move on from the Batman for today, there were 4 posters released by Warner Brothers, DC and Matt Reeves. Here's the first one. So this is awesome, and there's clues galore in these posters, and let's try and give them a read. So one says, unmask the truth. Now you can see that there's these little kind of weird knifey arrows, whatever they are, that everything you see here, and the question mark, right? There's a reason for all of this. If I were you, look at these posters very deeply and analyse them yourselves. Now, luckily I've seen the movie, because if I hadn't, I'm no good at stuff like this. I'm no good at puzzles. But it was great watching the film, and you know, while you're watching the film, it's like you're the detective and you're trying to solve this mystery as well, and that's an element of Reeves' genius, if you ask me. Anyway, we go on to the next poster. This one is Zoe's one of Catwoman, Selina Kyle. Again, she's looking absolutely fantastic. When you see the film, you will have no issues or complaints about her casting. So again, we've got the same thing, question mark, unmask the truth, and it's very, very interesting where the question mark falls. The question mark always falls in the face, focusing on the eyes. There's a reason on that. Can we trust Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman? I know the answer to that, and you will on March the 4th. And I think this is an awesome one of the Riddler. A lot of people have had complaints about this outfit, but again, this is not Edward Nygma. This is Ed Nashton, a very different version of the Riddler in this Earth 2. This is what the Riddler looks like in Earth 2. Period. It isn't a problem, it isn't an issue. His outfit, his costume is absolutely fantastic. Again, for the people, the pie eaters at the back of the room, he's not Ed Nygma, he's Ed Nashton. That's a very important distinction to make. I love the costume. Again, he doesn't have the arrows this time, but he has got unmask the truth. Very interesting, because I'm not going to say anything. I nearly spilt the beans somewhere there, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And finally, we don't see much of him in the movie, but Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. It is fantastic, and I can't wait for his HBO Max series. What a time to be a DC fan, right? How can you be negative right now? Looking good, right? Doesn't look like Colin Farrell at all. So again, we get the lines there, weird kind of, I can't really get into it, but you know, I want to say something and I keep on nearly spoiling something, but I can't say anything without giving the game away. But again, you've got these things here. Again, don't want to go too much into detail about them. You've got the question mark, unmask the truth. It's all about unmasking the truth in this movie, and the word unmasking, it doesn't mean what you think it means. But you know, for brilliant posters, for brilliant character posters for the Batman, what's impressed me the most about the marketing is how early it started. Basically, if you go down to Burbank right now, and if you go anywhere near WB or anything they own, it's Batman this, the Batman this, the Batman, you know, it's all about the Batman. This reminds me of Superman 78. This reminds me of Batman 89. The confidence of this movie from WB is beautiful. They know they have hold of something really, really special. This is the rebirth of DC live action, and I couldn't be more excited about it. Well, believe it or not, it's not just the Batman releasing this year. We have got so many things to be excited about as DC live action fans. We've already had Peacemaker on HBO Max. We are getting Black Adam after the Batman. We are getting this Flashpoint movie that changes everything, of course. And we're also getting Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And one of the stars of the film has been talking about James Wan and what he's doing with this film. Now, there's not a lot of hype around Aquaman 2, which surprises me. But if we scroll down this Screen Rant article and find the quote, I think it's very, very interesting what's being said here. So this is what's been said. The movie's going to be a blast. We had such a great time shooting it. I will say that James established what he wanted to do with the first one. It was clearly successful, and it's like, okay, now let's push it. Laugh. So every little goofy moment, heartfelt moment, action moment, the set pieces are unbelievable. The stunts were crazy. The fighting scene sequences are crazy and just awesome. And of course, this is Patrick Wilson, who played Orm. So it sounds like it's another stunning movie to look at. Very emotional, very goofy. It's going to have a bit of everything. I personally am very hyped for this movie. I'm hyped for everything DC live action this year, but I think that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom must be a very, very good film, because it looks like realistically it's actually going to be released at the same time as Avatar 2, which tells you a lot. And so they might, WB must be very confident about this movie. So it's a huge year for WB. Last year was very, very quiet, not just in terms of, DC, but in terms of blockbusters in general over at WB. They didn't make a lot of money on the blockbusters they released. I mean, I think, was it whatever it was it the Godzilla movie or whatever it was, Zilla versus Kong, whatever it was, right? They released that, it did okay, but it was on day and date. But, it wasn't a huge year in terms of blockbusters for WB last year, but this year is going to be huge, and these DC movies is where they're going to get their huge revenue from, and I'm really excited because I think this could be a record-breaking year, and if you're a genuine DC fan, that's going to make you excited. So away from the DCEU, Tyler Hoechlin, our very own Superman, has responded to the possibility of Melissa Benoist's Supergirl appearing on Superman and Lois, and this is what he's had to say. I'm such great friends with all those people. We obviously, especially with COVID, these last 2 years have not been able to see each other as much as we would like to, but they're just such great people. Having them around in any capacity is always great. So if we can find a way to make that work, that would be awesome. It's just a treat to be able to share the stage with them or share a coffee with them. It's all the same to me. We have a really great time together, so hopefully we'll be that lucky. Well, does this mean that Supergirl and Supergirl's cast of characters are going to appear in Superman and Lois? No. This means an actor was put in an uncomfortable situation and answered it in the best way possible. Basically, yeah, we're great mates. I'd love them to be part of this show. And, but even if I meet them as a friend, as a coffee, it's the same thing as them being on the show. What that basically means is it's a non-answer. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. This show is a stab at creating really, really good live-action Superman. And then, in this season and a bit that we've seen from this show, they've done that. Because there has been this issue, hasn't there? Is Superman still relevant? And Superman and Lois has proven that Superman is very relevant. It's a great show. It's a new take. We have a great Lois, a great Superman. We have the two young actors playing the twins as well. It's a great setup, and you really don't need to oversaturate this show, with crossovers, cameos, and things like that. It's clear the era of the Arrowverse isn't what it was, and maybe it's coming to a close, or maybe more than likely it's changing direction, and this show just doesn't feel like an Arrowverse show. It sounds like a show on its own. It feels like a start of a franchise, not an extension to another. And finally today, let's talk about Black Adam. And Black Adam film news, which is something you should be following on Twitter and I think on Instagram, because everything Black Adam film is on this site. And of course, these are the people, I think, who run the Flash film news, the Batman film news, Batgirl film news. They're doing a great, job covering all of DC live action. So they've talked about, they've pulled out an old quote from Henry Cavill about possibly appearing in Black Adam. An old article of Henry Cavill talking about a potential Superman versus Black Adam crossover. This is Henry Cavill back in the day. There is definitely some kind of work towards that. There's a lot of things spinning around in the universe right now with that. So that's very exciting for back then. Is this a commenter? Is this the same person? No. Yeah, that's just a commenter. So it's an interesting quote. So what does this actually mean? Does this mean there's any hope for the first movie? Does this mean we're going to have to wait down the line? Is this even a thing now? Henry Cavill was talking about this in the past. Now, my hunch has always been that Henry Cavill will appear in Black Adam and the Shazam sequel, Shazam Fury of the Gods. I still kind of believe that. I have my doubts. I have my doubts sometimes. Sometimes I'm more confident about it than other times, but I still want to be positive about it and believe it in my heart. So I do believe they're still planning for this. I still believe Henry Cavill is Superman in an element of the DCEU. In what part of the DCEU that is, I don't know. But I don't think this is a time to be negative. I think this is a time, with everything we're getting in DC live action, to be positive. And, you know, I'm still holding out hope that we will see Henry Cavill's Superman in this Black Adam movie and not Black Adam movies down the line, because what you'll probably find is we may not have other Black Adam movies after this. I believe this movie is the introduction to Black Adam into the DCEU. Then I think he's going to be involved in Justice League movies, in James Gunn's Suicide Squad universe as well. We've now know for a fact, because cast members are talking about this as well now, that James Gunn's wife, who plays a character in the Suicide Squad universe, his Suicide Squad universe, is part of a Task Force X team that abducts Black Adam at the end of the Black Adam film. Very exciting. So I don't think necessarily there's going to be more Black Adam films, but I think within his role within the DCEU will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's very exciting for the franchise. So if you're asking me if I believe if Henry Cavill's Superman and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam are going to cross over in the future, I think it's a positive thing, and I think it could even happen in the next movie. This has been the DCEU Daily, with COVID as well getting down there. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll be back again tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. And remember, if you've got COVID, it's not the end of the world. Hopefully your symptoms are mild, so you can carry on with your everyday. That's my plan. So until tomorrow, goodbye, au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.